our culture doesn't do much to help us learn how to grieve and to support a grieving process. We get into these cycles of worrying about what's coming, what's coming, what's coming. And pretty soon that gets hardwired into our head. We only have a certain amount of stress that we can handle. And so that already becomes our new baseline. You can learn the information intellectually, but when the loss occurs, making that transition from it being, intellectual to your heart or to your soul isn't as easy as it seems. No, this is a process and you have to work through this. There's no easy fix to grief.
Welcome to America Lost and Found. My name is Janelle Rapp. My sister Gina Boss disappeared on October 17, 2000. In the 25 years since she vanished, her disappearance taught me that I did not have to miss out on my own life just because I miss her. Though America Lost and Found has its inspirational roots in stories of missing persons, the grief their families face, their lessons, and their triumphs, this show is not just about missing people. If we are breathing, we face loss, but it doesn't have to define us. We feature guests who have learned to use loss instead of having loss use them. Our guests share tools that help them navigate their loss. Some will resonate with you, some may not. Our hope is that as you watch, like, and subscribe, you will not only gain tools for life, but you will be inspired to turn your loss into beautiful. Now, this young man that is my guest today is Duane T. Bowers. He's a trauma educator, author, therapist, and certified wellness coach in private practice. For the past 2 decades, he has provided support to families of victims of missing, murdered, and exploited and trafficked persons, and has supported and trained the professional staff, law enforcement, and agencies who work with these families and victims in the U.S. and Canada. And basically, Duane's been all over the world in one form or another, helping these people in great trauma. Please welcome Duane Bowers.
Thank you, Janelle. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Duane?
Good. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Glad to be here.
So, Duane, we have known each other for, I want to say 23 years, 23, 24, because it was early on in my sister's disappearance that I had the privilege of meeting you and finding out about what you do.
Yes, that would be just about right. 24 years, I think. Yeah.
And so the reason we are here is mostly because you are a therapist and wellness coach, and you can help us navigate what's going on in the world today. But also, I don't think I've asked you this before, and if you don't want to talk about this, we can edit it out, that I even ask you this question. But do you have, for your own life, some great loss that made you have to go, whoa, I need more tools than I have right now? And then you were able to, through a process of recovering and going through the grief of the loss, find tools that you use to this day and maybe help you also in your practice with your clients.
Actually, I did. So I was already a therapist, and I was actually working at a center for grief and loss, and was temporarily the executive director there. And so I thought, I've got this. And so then a partner of mine died, and I soon learned that you can learn the information academically, intellectually, but when the loss occurs, making that transition from it being, intellectual to your heart or to your soul isn't as easy as it seems. And I struggled, I think maybe struggled beating myself up even more because I should know better. I should know how to handle this. I should know, what to do. And that was added to the grieving process. It taught me a lot, not only about grief in itself, but also about expectations for yourself. And that a large part of what we do for ourselves as far as grieving and anxiety and depression, we put on ourselves very often. And so learning to not do that helps us to be able to handle just the basic depression or the basic grief of the situation. So, yeah.
So you're saying to just allow the grief to happen and not beat ourselves up because it's happening or we're reacting to the wrong way or, not the way everyone else does or.
I think part of our culture here in the United States is that we are all control freaks. We all want to be able to control everything about our lives. And when we have a loss, which we could not control, then we want to just know the formula. Give me the formula so I can handle it and get it over with. Give me the pill, give me whatever it is so I can move on. And then we get angry when we realize, no, this is a process and you have to work through this. There's no easy fix to grief. There's no easy fix to depression, anxiety, any of those kinds of maladies that we may come across, but particularly grief. Most people want to get it over with. And our culture kind of says, okay, you have 2 days, maybe 3 days of bereavement leave, and then you should be over it. And so our culture doesn't do much to help us learn how to grieve and to support a grieving process. They acknowledge the loss and then move on. So.
Well, I feel like at this point in my life that I see more grief in all ages than I ever have seen in the entirety of my life. Some of it, I feel if I go to young people, because I am a teacher, private music teacher, so I have a lot of young people that I teach. And then I have teenagers that live with me. So some of it I see in those kids more than I ever have in all my years of teaching and all my years of living. And I want to go back to COVID and say, did COVID cause this? Because if I subtract how many, it's been 5 years, the age they were, most of them were in middle school or almost middle school, like the end of grade school going into middle school. The development, I am not a therapist like you, so you can help me with this. But when I have problem, and I think I've said this to you before, when I have some kind of big crisis in my life, somehow there's a thread that goes back to middle school for me because middle school was awful. And I think it's awful for a lot of people. The transition between childhood and adulthood, our bodies are changing. We look weird. We don't even know what's acceptable. We're just so confused socially. So if those kids were housed behind a computer for 2 years during that period where, you learn so much from your peers and you learn things you don't want to learn, but you have a variety of challenging experiences. They missed that, and they missed going through that period in emotionally, socially, all that. So it makes me wonder if that is what is affecting them, that group, because they seem more affected to me than I've been taking kids into my house for 10 years, and this year, whoa. And then if I did the tracing back the 5 years. And then I think about what's going on in our government and then globally, how the world is affected by what's going on with us.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's clear. And then I think of, not to bring up Reagan and the trickle-down financial theory, but the trickle-down of the emotional trauma. It trickles down to the masses. And and then it does affect the children. So are the children being affected by not only what happened with COVID, because they were delayed, developmentally, maybe delayed this generation. And then we have this trauma coming on top of that. And I see more kids in therapy than I ever have.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. An interesting thing happened after COVID. They decided we have a part of our brain called the amygdala, which is the fear center, and it's the one that decides whether we're in fight, flight, freeze or not. And so what they wanted to do was to see if social interaction turns off the amygdala, turns off our fight, flight, freeze response. And so they wired a bunch of people up with patches on their heads and whatever, over 1,000 people in this experiment. And they did things, social interaction and separation and all sorts of things. And what they found was no change, absolutely no change. But what they found was there was a part of the brain in the back that actually lit up with social interaction. And with more research, what they found was social interaction ignites the part of our brain that is sort of the business manager of our brain. It's the part of the brain that helps us to organize our thoughts, organize our thinking, file things away where they belong. It's nothing external. It's about how the internal brain or mind works. And I think what may have happened for these kids was this is in that age, a place where that part of the brain is maturing and creating. And I think maybe there has been some delay in their ability to just be able to process what goes on and process all of this in an order that makes sense and that they can file away. And so that can in itself cause, I think, depression, and the inability to be able to then now interact with others in a way that is socially acceptable. And I think we've also seen a large increase in the last few years of kids with autism and being on the spectrum. And while I have not seen any research that takes that back to COVID, I do have to question, why suddenly now is there this big increase? And I think also children who are on the spectrum, but maybe not fully diagnosed as autistic or having a disorder, even if they're just on the spectrum a little, that affects the way they interact with people, and affects the way they see the world, and that could be affecting them. So I think it's going to take a while for us to really realize the impact of that social separation that we had to do during the 2-year period.
Yeah. I feel like we need a lot more therapists than we have, that people need
Oh,
to.
definitely. We all have waiting lists miles long of people waiting to see us. That's why telephone sessions, even text counseling has become popular, is because there's just not enough therapists right now. Yeah.
Wow, that was my suspicion, and then you just made it real.
Yeah.
So, with all of this going on, there's a lot of stirring up the pot in our lives. So uncertainty, unbalance, anxiety, depression. But we're here with our neighbors. We're here with our fellow workers. We're here with our fellow students. How do we get through this period? What are some things that we can do to make it easier for ourselves, but also each other? Because we are here for each other. We are here to love each other, I think. We are here to support each other. And I think we really need some guidance. Everyone's just going, I was talking about Chicken Little. It feels like, the sky is falling and I don't even know what piece to grab to try to put it back together.
Yeah. Yeah. And what we have to understand is that we have this background going on of, I'm in the Washington, D.C. area. So here specifically of people losing jobs and nationally of organizations losing funding and different agencies being cut and all of that sort of thing. And so if it's not us, it's our neighbor. We know somebody, even down to folks who are being rounded up as far as the being immigrants and that sort of thing. And so people we know, people that are next to us. So there's this background of this that while a lot of people say, well, yeah, it's going on, but it really doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me. It does. And so it's already raising, we only have a certain amount of stress that we can handle. And so that already becomes our new baseline. So our new baseline of stress and anxiety is already higher, I would suggest, than it was a few months ago, even. Um, and then put all that aside, the divisiveness that has come out of it, where you don't know who you can talk to or who you can say something to that they may have a completely different opinion of what's going on than you do, and so that becomes anxiety ridden. You don't know who you can talk to and who you can say things to and that sort of thing. Even within your own family, there may be divisiveness as a result of this. So there's a baseline, and then you go to work and there's the work stress, or you're raising kids and there's the kids stress. You're trying to raise a family and there's that stress. So our baseline has already moved us up to a level that when you put on the other stressors, our breaking point is closer than it used to be. And we have to be aware of that. The one thing about anxiety to recognize, though, the difference between stress and anxiety is with stress, if you remove the stressor, the stress is gone. Done. And if stress lasts a long time, then we have to learn coping mechanisms to help us mm, um, deal with, tolerate the stress until the stressor is gone. Anxiety is all about the future. Anxiety is all about worrying about what's going to happen. And unfortunately, it's usually catastrophic thinking. So it's, and think about this, if it's all in the future, then it's all in our head. You may know that something has a high likelihood of happening, but until it happens, it hasn't. And so we get into these cycles of worrying about what's coming, what's coming, what's coming. And pretty soon that gets hardwired into our head. I'm also going to say, if you were raised by somebody who had anxiety, worried about the future all the time, and had catastrophic thinking, you learned that behavior. And it's also, research is showing that it could be genetic. So we're kind of hardwired to do that. And there was a study that said that 3 out of 4 of our thoughts are anxiety producers.
Wow.
In other words, it's a concern for our well-being. And so we're kind of hardwired for anxiety. So we really have to work at watching our thoughts, watching what we think about, and what supports it. One of the things that I hear lots of people talk about is, I just turn off the news. I just can't watch the news anymore. And that's fine. If you need to see the headlines once a day, maybe the headlines instead of watching the news. But, there was an old song you'll remember, "Don't nobody bring me no bad news."
Mm.
And that's very true, because your brain just absorbs it. If our brain is centered on anxiety, then it's looking for things to feed that anxiety. Why do that to ourselves? It's out there. If you want it, you know where to find it, but give yourself a break from it. Give yourself a break from that negative input so that your brain can go, oh, well, what do I think about now? And literally doing thought stopping. Oh my God, maybe I'm going to lose my job or not. Oh my God, if I lose my job, then I'm going to lose the house or not. I'm serious when I say do that. Thought stop. Every time you say a catastrophic thought, put an or not after it. You don't have to believe it. Just say it so that your brain hears it and goes, oh, well, you mean I can think about something else? Yeah, you can. And if you're consistent with that kind of thought stopping, it actually allows you to break that cycle of just the anxiety thinking. And of course, the old time things like exercise, social interaction, with folks and just not talking about this, but just talking about everyday life, and not necessarily the anxiety. Um, good plans for the future, planning a vacation, planning, even just planning to go to Dairy Queen to get a blizzard this Saturday. That's something positive to think about, something to look forward to that replaces the anxiety thought. So I thought, I'm sorry, I talked a lot. So those are some ideas though, on how to kind of shift the thinking so that you can get a break from the anxiety thoughts.
I like the Dairy Queen idea. Yeah, you had me at Dairy Queen. So maybe they'll sponsor us. My last podcast, the guests talked about Starbucks. I'm like, oh, no, I'm kidding. They don't care about us. No, they love us. They want us or not.
Or not.
Or not.
Or not.
I like the or not. That's simple. If we could get in the habit of saying or not, especially if, how many did you say? 3 out of 4?
3 out of 4 of our thoughts are about our concern for self, our concern for survival. And in some kind of way, suspicious about, I don't mean suspicious, but wary. That's a good word. Our wary thoughts. And so it's no wonder we slipped into this
No wonder. It's an easy slip.
Anxiety.
Have you, since you've known that, have you tried to track yourself to see if that happens with you? And
I'll tell you, yeah, and it does. It does. Well, but you have to understand too that I was I was raised by the queen of anxiety.
Oh, okay.
My mother once said, I can't think of anything to worry about. There must be something wrong. Okay, so there you have it. Yeah.
It's not
so
funny,
I had to work really hard a few years ago to stop worry, to stop it, to just teach my brain to not have to do that. And it's not easy, but step by step, little steps. If you can break the thought, every time you break a thought, you actually weaken a neural network. And so that's all you need to do is just when you catch yourself, just say, or not.
Or not.
And again, it just makes your brain go, oh, okay.
Or not is so easy. I love that. It's so simple, so easy. It's not complicated. Just, you can start right now.
Yeah, it is. It is. Absolutely. Other things that I tell folks to do is, oh, I'm going to lose my job. But in this moment, I still have a job. So I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. In this moment, I still have my house. So I'm going to enjoy it. That takes that's a little, or not. It's just really quick, simple, and it works really quickly. Because you could get into a brain argument about, yeah, but if I don't think about it, then I won't be ready for it, or not. That's all it takes. Yeah.
Yeah, we do argue that way, don't we?
Yeah.
If I'm not paying attention, it might happen, and then I wasn't paying attention, and I didn't see the signs, and.
Yes, I have to fret about this because if I don't fret about it, well, here's the other thing. Magical thinking. We all kind of believe in magical thinking a little bit. So if I don't consider the worst thing that could happen, it might happen to me and blindside me. So I need to figure out what to do if it does happen. Well, then we get into these thinking loops and can't get out of them. So, yeah. But good care, if you really know that you're stressed, then watch what you're eating. Kind of reduce, I'm not saying eliminate, but reduce sugar, reduce carbs, reduce the stuff that's hard for your body to digest because it's already working harder because you have anxiety. So you want it to not have to work harder to digest food that you're eating. Junk food, yeah, we all love junk food, but just make sure it's in moderation. I love my Starbucks. I love my coffee. But over the past few weeks, I've had to, at least in the evening, start drinking decaf, which before I never had to. I could sleep no matter what. Now I have to think about, okay, decaf. I'm stressed. So, yeah.
Yeah, what is it like for you to, as a therapist, to hear all this anxiety and depression and stress and all day long? What's a tool for you to just let that go and still have peace and joy and love and know that there's something besides that? Because that
Um,
must be some long days sometimes.
it is sometimes. One of the keys is my spiritual practice, and I'm not saying religious. I'm saying spiritual. Um, so it's a form of meditation. It's a form of healing meditation. I learned a long time ago that if you spend time in meditation, sending healing to others, it helps to shift your anxiety to, you know, healing, to doing something for somebody else. So I do that. Just I tend not to do it for my clients, but I'll do it for situations that I may hear about or whatever. So um, you may have heard that what happened last night was a plane, I think an Air Indian plane, crashed outside of London just as it was taking off, and it killed 240 some people. That's the kind of situation that I would meditate on and kind of try to send healing energy to those families. Um, it takes my focus off of me, off of my anxiety, and it focuses on doing something for somebody else. I believe that it actually does something too. I believe in energy, and I believe in the transfer of energy. But even if it doesn't work, it helps me by not focusing on me and my uh, anxiety. I'm a crocheter. I exercise every day. I try to walk at least twice a week, a few miles a couple of times a week. So physically, activities as well as the mental activity and the more spiritual stuff.
So that keeps you clean, and then you're able to help more people and do more
I
and
I
have a
think so. Yeah.
normal life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. The more we do, the less time we have to ponder what might happen. So if we stay active, particularly in helping others, and it can be little stuff, like asking the old lady next door, "Hey, I'm going to the grocery store. Do you need anything?" Just little stuff that allows us to get out of our own heads about ourselves.
Super important. Super important. I honestly do something kind of like that. When I'm having a really rough day, I will just try to relax, and then I think about, okay, who do I need to send a text to that needs a lift? And
Mm.
just by sending texts, I send a few, as many as I have time for. I feel so much better already just from that action of just sending them some positive message. Sometimes I send a prayer to them or what I want. I pray for them because I know what their needs are, if I
Yeah,
know their
absolutely.
specific needs. So that's a
I would also,
helpful tip right there.
so everybody's heard about mindfulness and probably sick of hearing of mindfulness, but that's because nobody's really explained what it is and what it does for the body and brain. But literally, when you're feeling really, really stressed, or you catch yourself going into one of those really deep rabbit holes of, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Literally, and I'm not kidding, do the hokey pokey. I'm serious. Do the hokey pokey, because here's what happens. By doing the jingle and doing the little choreography that goes with it and that sort of thing, you can't be thinking about the stressor. You cannot be thinking about the future. You have to be focused on the here and now and on your body, and is it doing the right thing? If that sounds a little silly to you, then walk backwards for 5 minutes. Again, you have to focus on your body. You can't be thinking about stuff in the future because you're too worried about, am I going to trip over the cat? Or crawl on your hands and knees for a few minutes. Do pat a cake with yourself. Does the same thing. It brings you back into the moment, and again, it breaks that thought pattern so that it weakens it. And if you can do little things like that just to bring yourself back into the present moment, it breaks the thought pattern, and it actually balances some of the chemistry in your brain, reduces the cortisol level, allows your brain to create some serotonin, and releases endorphin. So, you know, little things like that that sound silly, but they can be fun, you know?
Sounds fun. Can
Yeah,
bring you some joy and help you to see that there's another way to look at things or another way to be, or there's more to life than just this anxiety ridden
yeah.
thing over here.
Absolutely.
It's a pocket. It's part of life, but it's just a pocket. It's not all of life.
Exactly. It's just a part of my life. And then the key to this is if you have a significant other, you got kids around or whatever, help remind each other. So if mom happens to go down a path of anxiety, nothing wrong with the kids saying the or not at the end of it
Mm.
to help remind her, oh yeah, you're right, or not,
Let's do the
helping each
family
other.
hokey pokey.
Okay,
Okay,
yes,
everybody.
absolutely. Yep,
That
yep.
sounds so much fun. Like so much fun. It kind of reminds me of, when your kids are 2 and 3 years old and they're crying about something you have no idea what, you can't get them off of it, distract them with something. So you're
Yep.
distracting yourself from the anxiety you're feeling and then you forget about it. You're just out of it.
Another thing that I suggest to people is to have a go-to place. So think of a place that you consider relaxing, that you consider fulfilling, that you really enjoy being in. It can be a spiritual place, it can be a place in nature, it can be anything. And practice going to it in your head. And by going to it, I mean connect to it with all five senses. Really hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it, feel the wind, feel the sun, because your brain doesn't know the difference between an image and reality. It will respond to an image that you create as much as it would reality. So create this image so that you're feeling safe. You're feeling in a place of wonder. Um, I worked with a kid once who was getting MS, and his go-to place was the bridge of the USS Enterprise. And because there he could shoot photon torpedoes at the cells that were getting sick in his body and all that sort of thing. And he loved being there. And it stopped his worry. It stopped his concern. And unfortunately, we couldn't get his folks to do it because they were, of course, very concerned for him. But for him, it relieved his stress, which helped to slow down the progression of the MS. So,
That's beautiful. It kind of reminds me of Mask, that movie with Cher and Eric Stoltz. Is that how his name is? It Stoltz? Eric.
I think.
Anyway, so Eric was a kid and he had a disfigured face. And I believe it came with, it's been a long time since I saw the movie, but I believe it came with a lot of pain, whatever was wrong with him. And his mom, who was Cher, would, when he was having real problems, would lie down next to him or be next to him. And she would have him close his eyes and just think about the happiest moment in his life or just like live it, breathe it, smell it, all of that. And that got him through his childhood.
Hmm. That was based on a real life story.
I remember,
Yeah.
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 But wow, that's some good stuff. So I feel like you're saying we have a choice. So we feel
Hmm.
a certain way, and we have a choice to get an image in our mind, go and do something else, hokey pokey, or we can use the quick fix, which is or not. We're
Or
thinking
not.
about that. That's some
Yeah.
really good stuff, and they're all kind of simple. Even on Grey's Anatomy, if you ever saw that, they would do the
Hmm.
dance it out. When they were having a lot of stress and,
Yeah.
being interns and all that, they just, okay, let's go dance it out. And they dance
Yep.
it out
Yep.
and, get all that energy going in a different way, move the energy around.
Absolutely. Remember this, and that's a good point. Thank you for reminding me that anxiety and stress, what it eventually does is puts us into a fight, flight, freeze response. And one way that we deal with that is to expend the energy. So any kind of way that we can expend that energy also helps us to not spend a lot of time in it. So again, exercise, taking a walk, those kinds of things can be helpful. Those basic things that we've heard for most of our lives. But remember that anxiety is in your head. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just anxiety is about the future. So it hasn't happened. It's out there. So what you're responding to, you're creating in your head. And if you can keep that in mind, then you can say, stop or not. Hokey pokey, because I need to stop my head. It's not real yet. It's in my head. And so, yeah, know what you're going to do for the future and then let it go until that happens and stop the activity in the head.
I think that's a great way to end. You just wrapped it all up in a little nutshell, and that's a really good soundbite. Really good soundbite.
Good.
Duane, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for your time and your patience and your love to humanity and all that you do for so many, and your willingness to put yourself out there and in the lives of so many people that need help and need someone to listen. We all need someone to listen to us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for being here. All right. We love you. Goodbye. America Lost and Found.